Welcome to City of Churches. I'm Nick Vavis, and today we're in another part of Astoria, Queens, which is also known as Astoria Heights, by the way, to visit St. Francis of Assisi Church. Now, this parish was established in 1930, but parts of its history goes back to the 1800s when a world-famous piano maker came to town. And that once famous piano maker who stayed was Henry Steinway. Behind me you can see the Steinway & Sons factory. Now, in 1853, Henry Steinway founded the first Steinway piano factory in Manhattan. And then around 1870, the company built a new state-of-the-art factory in this rural countryside at one time, about 11 acres of land, which is now Astoria. In order to attract top craftsmen, a self-contained factory town was established here called Steinway Village. It contains stores, a church, a library, a trolley line, and most important of all, houses for the company's valued employees. If you notice, the entrances are on the side, not in the front. These are the last remaining homes that have this. It kind of demonstrates the self-contained environment that this was. And speaking of houses, only a few blocks away is the old Steinway Mansion. It's the family's 25-room summer home. Now, it's one of the only remaining summer homes of its kind, Victorian style, that's still left in Queens today. In addition, they established public recreation areas such as beer gardens and the North Beach Amusement Park, which was eventually torn down and replaced by LaGuardia Airport in the 1930s. Beyond the residential area are some factory buildings and the Rikers Island Bridge that leads to the city penitentiary. William Steinway was greatly interested in urban transportation and in fact helped design the New York City subway system. The Steinway family was greatly responsible for the modernization and development of Astoria. In fact, their influence was so great that the main thoroughfare was renamed Steinway Street in their honor. The factory still turns out about 2,500 musical instruments each year, and they also refurbish older pianos as well. A lot of the employees you'll find still live in the neighborhood. This has always been a working class community. And right in the center of it all is St. Francis of Assisi Church. The neighborhood's pretty residential here, a mixture of old and new. And we've arrived at St. Francis of Assisi. And one of the first things I notice is that there's no bricks, unlike the other churches I've seen. It's entirely made of wood. It gives it a sort of country feel, kind of a serenity that matches pretty well with the neighborhood. Now, one of the things I heard about this church is that there was a fire in the back of the building that did some damage pretty bad to the roof and to the rest of the church. We're going to go inside and have Monsignor Maresca tell us all about it. So follow me. Monsignor Maresca,
welcome to St. Francis of Assisi in Astoria. I'm delighted that you're here.
There's a couple unique things here that I heard about that.
Okay.
I'm very excited for you to show me and for the viewers as well.
Great, great. It's a wonderful community, you know, and as you look, it's a very small church, right? But yet there's a very warm feeling here.
It's very
intimate.
intimate.
The people are very family. And it's a delight to celebrate Mass here, and they enjoy coming. And even when new people are here and they're recognized, they say, "We just love your church."
First time I walked in, there was a shrine, and I wanted to ask you about this, if you could maybe fill me in and tell me about it.
There's a shrine here to the very first pastor, Monsignor Schaffner.
Okay.
Right? And there's something interesting about that maybe later on we'll touch base with.
Okay.
All right, because something happens, has been happening every Saturday, and it's been for 80 years in his honor. I think it's great.
So 80th anniversary
of the parish.
The parish, and when the church was built?
Correct.
Same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, ironically, Nick, this wasn't supposed to be the church. The initial plans, when I looked in the archives, was to be a Gothic structure to seat 800. Okay. But I am delighted that they didn't build that, only because, you know, now, I mean, it's so intimate and warm, and everybody knows everyone, and truly it is the spirit of St. Francis.
So it worked out well.
So it worked out well, so
perfect.
I'm really delighted. Of course, financially, too, it makes it a little easier, you know.
And then one other thing I wanted to mention, is that another shrine I'm
Sure,
looking at?
it is, Nick. You know what? We just recently put that picture up to Divine Mercy. It's celebrated the Sunday after Easter. And of course, everyone is in need of God's mercy. That's for sure. That's for sure. And people have a devotion to that. Just like if we back here for a minute, the statue of Padre Pio, the Italian community has a great devotion to it. And we had over 700 people here when we blessed that statue. Now, the tree of life, which is on this wall, the tree, and on this wall, you know, represents the people who donated for the renovations. The church has been renovated over the past, I'm going to say, at least 20 years.
There's a lot of things that catch my eye when I walk in. I want to talk about a lot of the physical things, and maybe you can start with some of the history of the church.
80 years ago, we were founded, yes, all right. Unfortunately, I think this was the style, correct. I think the only thing original are the pews and the tabernacle, because my predecessors in renovating, they changed the windows. And if you look at the windows, Nick, they're gorgeous because they're simple, but they give us the message of our faith. You know, it talks about key moments in the life and the history of the church. And so whoever designed the windows, well, they're simple, but they're rather elegant in their simplicity. And it adds to the beauty of the church. And if you look at the Stations of the Cross, they've been recently redone and renovated. As you know, after our 75th anniversary, we had a terrible fire here.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I did hear in an all-wooden church.
In an all-wooden church.
This terrible fire.
Nick, believe it or not, if it wasn't for one of our parishioners who cut across the back behind the church to go get breadcrumbs for his mother and saw the flames coming out, otherwise, you know, we would have we would have lost the whole building.
Saint of Mercy, we needed that.
Yes.
So when I'm looking up the ceiling, I've never seen anything like this. It's all wood, it's varnished dark wood.
It's dark wood.
And so was this the original style
before
the fire, and was it rebuilt the same way?
No, well, the only destruction was in the front. Okay, part of that stained glass window on the left side. You know, when the church was built 80 years ago, the neighborhood was really German and Irish.
Okay.
All right, and so they built it, and you kind of, when you look at it, you can see, you know, some of that structure in the arches, and even in the decorative wood that's along the panels. You know, and then what happened was, after the fire, they came in, and when they cleaned the church, you were able then to, you know, see the ceiling much better. And
do you think it helps with the lighting in here, because it seems fairly bright? I mean, this is dark wood, but the contrast of the light through the windows, and the light that's around the church, do you think that helps with why it's so bright? Because it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, for dark wood, it could be a very dim light.
No, and the lighting is ample. And again, that was put in during one of the renovations. It's not original. Okay. The shrines were renovated after the fire, and I had a committee, and we worked on it, and they kind of matched, you know, the background for the shrine to St. Francis on your right, for the shrine to Mary and Joseph on the left. And then what we did was the kind of the baptismal font matches the altar and the pulpit and the lectern, and even the altar of the tabernacle. It's all it all matches now, where before there was kind of a mixture of all sorts of things. You know, so it worked out well.
Very quickly, if we can turn behind the choir loft, and the organ, are those things all original as well?
No, we were hit by lightning a couple of years ago. I know, a couple of years ago in July, we were hit by lightning, so it burned out the organ, it burned out the whole microphone system, and so upstairs and downstairs, and so we had to, you know, put in a new a sound system, and then we had to put in a new organ. But through the generosity of the parishioners, you know, and insurance, you know, we were able to, you know, cover everything and
to reconstruct. Okay. How's the sound coming out? The
sound comes out great.
The ceiling.
It's great. It really is. The choirs do a wonderful job. You know, really, and that only adds to, you know, the spiritual dimension of the parish and in all our liturgical celebrations.
What is the parish now?
I would say 65% is Italian.
The nationality of the
nationality is Italian,
same
right?
thing?
But we do have some Spanish. Well, they wouldn't be necessarily Catholic, but the neighborhood isn't. There are Greeks in the neighborhood, but we do have Filipino families. We do have Polish families. We still, I'm sure, have some German families and Irish. You know, and we do have some Spanish families that are in. But the diversity, and I think that's what adds to the richness of the parish, Nick. really. And the people see that, and you can see when they come in, they just, it's family.
Yeah.
That's the best I could say, that it's family.
Would you say you have a special bond then with the parish here? I know you've been here 8 years, did you say?
I'm beginning my sixth year.
Sixth year, okay.
Year, yeah.
So do you feel like you've then developed a very special bond with this parish?
Absolutely. The people are wonderful. I love them. I know that they love me.
Yeah.
And I think that, and they've always been supportive of everything that we've done. Their generosity and their richness is not so much in money, but in the faith that they have and in their talents that God gave them, and they use. And it's great to see that.
Well,
I began a parish festival. I began a parish festival with a committee, and what it does is it gets all of the members of the different societies together for the good of the parish and the good of the school. And it just created a wonderful, the financial end of it is a plus, but what it did was it brought everybody together to create, again, that wonderful feeling of working together for St. Francis Parish and School, and it just...
So with that conviction, as you would say, with that passion, I'm guessing the rebuilding of the altar, which is quite unique and beautiful. You have to tell me all about that.
Sure, it was redone back in 2005, after the fire. We celebrated the 75th anniversary, and literally the next day there was a fire in the church after that celebration. And basically, the sanctuary itself is where the damage was. And the tabernacle, as you see, was over to the side, and it gave me an opportunity to move it back into the center because, as you know, the Eucharist is the center of our lives as Catholics, and the tabernacle into center, it's the focus. When people come into church, the first thing they see is the tabernacle. If you look, now I have no records to prove this, but I asked some of the older parishioners, and they claim that this is the original tabernacle. And if you might look on the door of the tabernacle, you see the Celtic cross. Mm-hmm. And again, initially there were Germans and Irish here in the beginning of the parish, so, it might be true about that.
It really is beautiful. And then the mosaic behind it.
The mosaic behind it is the wheat, the grapes, and then for the Eucharist, and then on the bottom is the chalice and the host. And it was behind the tabernacle when it was off to the side. And when they moved it to the center, I asked them if we can keep that intact, to put it behind it, because the symbolism of the Eucharist, is beautiful for us as Catholics. And of course, the Eucharistic celebration takes place here. And so that mosaic behind it just kind of, sets off the tabernacle in a beautiful way. And again, it reminds us, of the Lord. And so
it draws a lot of focus to the center too. So with the mosaic, the tabernacle, the stained glass, it's really quite amazing.
It's beautiful. It's simple.
And I've noticed some things too that you explained to me earlier. But if you could tell,
sure. It is very simple. But if you look very closely at it, you can see a cross in the red stained glass. Okay, can you see that?
I caught it. Yeah, I did.
Now, if you look very closely, you can almost visualize the body of the Lord on the cross. Okay, and you see that? Yeah.
I do.
And so, in its simplicity, that it's beautiful. It really is.
And this was damaged during the fire?
The first two panes were damaged, and this whole wall over to the side was damaged. So that was all recreated, and then they were able to match, and the stained glass, those first two panels. And then the water coming down destroyed the floor. So
from the fire hoses.
From the fire hoses, yeah. So there was a new parquet floor put down. And if you look, Nick, very carefully, the white marble offsets the tabernacle, it offsets the altar, and even it offsets the baptismal font to let us know that those are really special areas in the church. Especially the altar where the sacrifice takes place. And it's always in the center, reminding us, that Christ is the center of our life.
It's interesting because you're talking about the center, and yet there was something you had mentioned. You moved out of the center, which you found more effective.
Right. Nick, up here, 3 steps up used to be that chair. All right. And so it was an opportunity when I put the tabernacle here to move the chair out in the front, closer to the people, and they loved it. Their first reaction was, "Oh my, you're right. You're right here in front of us."
Much more personable.
Sure,
I would think,
sure.
Right?
And when you look, because it is a small church, you really can almost have good eyesight. I always tease them sometimes because I tell them, I know when you come in late. And they laugh.
Well, up here you're like the school teacher, the principal with the.
Yeah,
with
but
the desk.
right out there, you're just right out there with them, and it's really it's wonderful. It's a great place to celebrate, because it is intimate, and because it is small, and that adds all the difference.
What about crucifixes. So the one above the altar, and then behind us is the processional.
Okay, behind us is the processional cross, Nick. It's the San Damiano cross. It's the one that Francis heard the Lord speak from when he said to build my church. Francis thought because the church was dilapidated, falling apart, he meant to physically build it, but the Lord was calling him, you know, to build this church, to bring the people together. You know, and that's, we don't have time, but that's a very interesting cross, because there's so much that goes on and takes place there. In fact, one of our college students actually wrote a paper on this.
Really?
And I ran it off and distributed it, and people were amazed. You know, that, you know, while they looked at it and they enjoy its beauty.
Right. The history and what it symbolized.
Right.
Yeah.
And this crucifix up here was not destroyed in the fire, but I did have it repainted, and I put on the corners of it the 4 evangelists, the gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we put it back up, and the people were delighted.
Yeah.
You know,
did that yourself? I mean,
the
the 4
idea,
corners,
yes,
you
the
did
4
that
corners,
yourself.
I wanted the evangelists
Very crafty.
on there. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call you out on something in the beginning that you would not tell me about or show me.
You
When we
remember.
first walked in, yes, the shrine to Monsignor Schaffner.
Sure.
You're not going to tell me about that yet?
Well, you know,
You're gonna make me wait?
yeah, I think
It was
we
very
can-
interesting, I have to tell you.
Yeah,
It was-
it's. I'm amazed to this day, you know, of
Okay.
what takes place every Saturday.
So 2 surprises in store for myself and for the viewers. We're going to go see the shrine to St. Francis, if that's okay. Can we do that now?
Yes, we can.
Let's do it. I'm going to
good.
follow you.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Nick, let me take you over and show you the shrine to St. Francis of Assisi. It's a bronze statue, and it was always in the back, but after the fire and we renovated, it was suggested to be moved here to give it its own little particular area, because it is our patron saint, it is the name of the parish. And so we moved it here, and people like it because they feel they can get closer. You know, some of the people do touch the statue, and it gives them, some of them will kneel here, you know, after they light their candle, and you know, because he lived a very simple life, and he lived in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, and that's what they do here. I tell my parish family all the time that they really lived the spirit of St. Francis. You know, he had a deep faith and love for the Lord and lived a simple life. You know, and so.
And he is the patron saint of
animals. Yeah, that's the other thing. That's a big thing. You know,
It's
really.
a big
And when
thing,
I
from
came
what I
here,
heard.
you know, they asked, "Are you going to bless the animals?" And I said, "Sure." We bless the animals on the Sunday closest to St. Francis, the Feast of St. Francis. And we do it in the schoolyard. Now, sometimes I say, you know, Monsignor, what happens if it rains? And I tell them, bring your umbrellas, okay?
I was going to ask
we
you.
get about 40 to 45. We
Yeah.
have nothing exotic. I think we had a couple of ferrets this past year, but basically dogs and cats.
So
a
any
couple of
animal
birds.
could be brought.
Any animals, right. You know, we've had
Pythons,
someone,
lizards.
Oh, sure.
What's the strangest? Can you think of the strangest animal since you've been here?
I
The most
can't.
bizarre?
No, that we had a snake once. You know,
All right,
we had
so
two.
that's, you
We
know,
had
that's
2
something.
pit bulls. You know, one time.
I'm guessing
I was
in a
little
cage,
nervous at
right?
that.
You're blessing it from.
I bless them in
they're
the cage.
cages?
Well, a lot of
Okay.
them are on their, you know, on the leashes.
Yeah.
I get a little nervous because I go with the holy water around to each one, and so you know they don't understand, and some of them try to bite the head of the
I was
holy
gonna
water.
ask what's involved in
of
the actual
sprinkler.
process.
Yeah, there
So
is
you're
a
doing-
prayer from the Book of Blessings that we use, and then I go around and I bless each animal with the holy water.
Got it.
And they enjoy it. And we've had, thanks be to God, we've always had nice weather.
Something
You
very
know, because
unique.
I am not going to bring them into the church.
Right,
You know, so as much as I know that, you know, animals are so important, you know, to the people who have them, you know, but
That's
I
probably a
always pray
bad
for nice
idea.
weather.
This church has had enough damage done to it. I don't think you want
Yeah,
animals
no, I
running
wouldn't
around
want
this.
that either.
Okay.
No, you know.
And so now it's time. You have to tell me at this point,
Nick, I
Monsignor.
kept you in suspense.
You kept me in
long enough,
suspense.
right?
It's something that we talked about before. The shrine to Monsignor Schaffner.
Right.
Come on,
What
tell
happens
me.
is,
What
the thing
happens?
is, and I think it's great, is every Saturday, a rose is delivered to the rectory in his memory, and we bring it over and place it into the shrine area. You know, and you know now the parish is 80 years old.
Yeah.
And even with my predecessors, every Saturday a rose is delivered.
From?
We don't know. It's an anonymous. Yeah. I don't know who set it up or what the florist delivers it, and we bring it over. And then when they deliver it now, it's always in a nice vase. It's a red rose,
Yeah.
always been a red rose, and we, you know, who's ever on in the sacristy brings it over.
And it's never more than one? It's always just one?
No, sometimes, and I think multiple? Sometimes it's multiple because it probably maybe is around the anniversary of his death. I never really looked into it, but you know, while I'm still amazed that it happens every Saturday, but sometimes you take those things for granted, you know. But a couple of times, even the sacristan will say, "Did the rose come yet?" Okay, so they're well aware of that, and
that is so interesting. I mean, the fact that it's anonymous, you can count on it.
Sure.
For so many years it's been happening, that's really something.
That's
Where do you put the rose?
The rose goes into the shrine area itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't get involved in that.
Okay.
Wherever, I guess there may be a spot in there.
You're not a florist in addition to all your other talents, I can understand.
No, really.
Well, Monsignor, listen, thank you so much for this tour. I really appreciate it.
I'm delighted you chose St. Francis.
This was great,
anytime you're in the area, please, you're always welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
And so with that, we conclude this episode of City of Churches. I really hope you found a lot of interesting things about the history, about the architecture of this church as much as I did. And if you'd like more information on this church or other churches in the series, you can log on to netny.net. And if you'd like to suggest a church we should profile, you can log on as well and let us know all about it. Until next time, I'm Nick Vavis with City of Churches. Hey guys, Nick Vavis here with City of Churches. I'm here at St. Augustine. Behind me, this beautiful backdrop is not the altar. I'm actually facing the altar. It is unbelievable. Also a very special artifact at this church, something really unique. You got to tune in to see it. It's quite the surprise. That's it. Nick Vavis, City of Churches. I'll see you back here on Net.